Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the second edition of the veloTALK series. Thanks a lot for joining in tonight. My name is Michel. Just want to present myself first. I'm one of the co-founders of Veloplaisir Europe, the organization that is hosting this event. It's actually already been a while since our first veloTALK, where Panchika and Frederick were talking about their 5-year around the world trip, and they were live from Turkey. And Michael was talking about his trip on the Balkans. I think they're also watching tonight. So welcome again, welcome back to the veloTALK. And of course, I also welcome everyone who's watching for the first time. Before we start, let me just say a couple of words on our organization and how, or on the idea of this veloTALK series. So, yeah, Veloplaisir Europe, we are basically an organization who is organizing bike trips, longer bike trips, shorter bike trips together, and we also organize events like the veloTALK, where we want to, first of all, give a voice to people who did, inspiring bike trips in Europe and the world. And also give a voice to people who work in the bike travel field, which is the case tonight as well. And from a spectator's point of view, of course, we want to invite people to listen, to get input for new bike trips, to get inspired, and to whether you're a beginner or whether you already did a lot of trips around the world, you can get input and you can learn how to organize bike trips, etc. But let's get right into it, because tonight is not about our organization, it's about our two guests. And I'll give the word to Lucas and Helen, who are going to introduce them. Enjoy the night.
Thank you, Michel, for the nice introduction. And I'm welcoming you guys also. Thank you for joining veloTALK. And I'm just going to get right into it, to our two presentations. Our first guest is Mario from Italy. He also goes by the name unfoldtheworld. And he's traveling on a foldable bike. And he did actually travel from Tunisia to the Arctic. And he's going to tell us about all the stories, why he did this. And we're looking forward to his presentation.
After that, we are going to hear about the Eurovelo network, the European Cycling Network, which is brought to us by Ivan from the European Cyclists Federation. He's a project officer of this non-governmental organization. And we are really looking forward to get to know everything about it.
And for the people who are new at the veloTALK, there will be the chat option. So you can write everything down which comes into your mind, questions and everything. We're just going to get back to it after the presentation during the Q&A. So don't be shy, participate. So I'm going to welcome Mario.
Hey, Mario.
Hi, everybody.
Thanks for joining us.
Mario.
So Mario, you're going to start with your presentation from your travels to Tunisia, from Tunisia to the Arctic. I'm going to give you the floor. You can share your presentation.
All right, here we go. First of all, thank you so much, Helen, Lucas, Michel from Veloplaisir Europe, for having me here tonight. Thank you also, Ivan from Eurovelo. I'm a big fan of your project, and I did cycle through some of the Eurovelo routes that crisscross Europe during my trip with a foldable bicycle from Tunisia to the Arctic Circle. I'm also very happy to connect with some other bike enthusiasts around Europe, around the world, and tell you more about my bike journey, and perhaps get inspired from your experiences as well. So I will dive straight into it, my presentation. So in the year 1 BC, before COVID, I decided to go on a trip around the world with my foldable bicycle and the few things I could carry with it. At that time, when I got the green light to take a year off from my work and start this project, I didn't know that it would coincide with the worst pandemic in 100 years. I think by that time, the fateful pangolin or the fateful bat were probably not even born. Very few people outside of China maybe knew of a city called Wuhan, even though humanity had been chopping down trees, destroying habitats of wildlife, and finding ever more sophisticated and brutal ways to cage animals to produce meat for decades, which are, in my humble opinion, the reason behind this, and unfortunately, I hope not, but probably other epidemics in the future. But I want to go into my story. So the pandemic indeed changed my plans, and a lot happened between the picture on the left in July 2020 and the picture on the right in June 2021. And I'm not just talking about my belly. There are lots of other things that happened in between. I had planned to cycle from Tunisia to cross the Mediterranean, cycle through Italy, the Balkans, reach Athens, where my initial plan was to board a freighter to Malaysia, where I would have continued my journey in Southeast Asia, in Asia, and slowly back to Europe. Of course, things didn't go that way. Nonetheless, I consider myself privileged because this was the only damage I suffered, which is nothing at all compared to people who lost their lives or lost their loved ones or their jobs during the pandemic. So, but nonetheless, although my initial plans changed, as you can see from this beautiful chart that my sister prepared, by the way, it was a gift I got for my birthday this year. So although my initial plans changed and I couldn't cycle east, I did cycle north, and little by little, lockdown after lockdown, test after test, cycling only where and when it was allowed, I did reach the Arctic Circle and beyond. And then from there, I cycled back home, crossing Europe again, all in all, for a period of 13 months, over 5,700 kilometers of cycling. I was not dogmatic about cycling all the way. I did switch between my bike, trains, boats, car lifts, everything except for flying for a whole year. And that's one of the advantages that comes with doing this journey with with a foldable bike, which was, by the way, my bike. It's been my bike for about 10 years, and I'm very close to it emotionally. But let's start from the very beginning. So as the saying goes, the journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step. And my single step took place right there on the 10th of July at sometime around 4 a.m. in Sidi Bouzid, which is in the heart of Tunisia. It's a city in mainland Tunisia, about 300 kilometers. My journey it was a 300-kilometer journey from the coast. And I had cycled there the day before. Took a bus there the day before with a friend of mine and colleague of mine, with the plan to cycle back to Tunis over the next 3 years. So why Sidi Bouzid? Why that time of especially, let me start with the fact that it was very hot at that time in Tunisia. So the only time we could cycle was sometime very early in the morning, between 4 and perhaps 8:39. Then it would get too hot. So we had to try to make as much progress as we could at that time of the day. I wanted to start from that particular place in Tunisia because of what it means for the country and for the rest of the world. The place you see in the picture is exactly where, on the 17th of December 2010, a street vendor called Mohamed Bouzizi set himself on fire after he had been brutalized by police, who first tried to bribe him and then basically confiscated the few things he had bought, few vegetables he had bought on debt to sell on that day. So he, desperate at this act, not the first one probably in his life of corruption and brutality, set himself on fire right there where the picture is. And that he would not die immediately. He would die a few days later in hospital. And that act would trigger a huge popular uprising that would sweep across Tunisia and before long across the entire region, and lead to a revolution, what would later be called the Arab Spring. And the rest is history. But I wanted to start from there because this is also a place where few visitors, few tourists visit. And I wanted to show through my bicycle journey also all the beauty of the journey through Tunisia that started from there. But there is another reason why I wanted my journey to start from the heart of Tunisia. And that is related to the fact that I wasn't always a bike enthusiast. When I did move to capital Tunis in 2016, I was actually quite terrified of cycling. I did try, and the first experiences were not very pleasant, driving through cars, being honked at. But then little by little, I gained confidence, and by the end of my stay, I would cycle to work many days a week, if not all of them. And I did gain confidence thanks to an organization of cyclists, of volunteers called veloTALK, which for those who are non-French speakers is a play of words between vélo, which means bicycle, and révolution, which doesn't really mean to be translated, but their idea is to revolutionize the way we think about mobility, urban mobility, but mobility in general, through the bicycle. So what they do, they organize group cycling event to raise awareness about cycling. They advocate, and they did so very much, especially during the pandemic, for the establishment of bike lanes in the city, for safety measures for cyclists, because the bicycle is a very safe means of transport, especially at these times, and it is a very affordable one. It brings a lot of freedom of movement to people who would otherwise not have it, and it is also an idea about completely change the way our cities are planned, so car-centered as they are at the moment. So the same way they dispelled my fear of cycling, veloTALK is organizing cycling school events, trainings around the country. And in 2020, they wanted to expand this project to a number of schools in the interior of Tunisia, where they would go, as you see in the pictures here. These are from the year before, and basically teach people who had never cycled before how to cycle. They would install bike parking lots in schools, etc., etc. Establish local organizations of cyclists, and so on and so forth. So I wanted to support this project, and I dedicated the first 1,000 kilometers of my journey to fundraise for this initiative by veloTALK Tunisie. But back to my journey. So from Sidi Bouzid, which is in the interior of the country, slowly over 3 days, I cycled my way back to the coast, going through some of the beautiful cities of Tunisia, which is a country full of history. I do invite you to visit if you have a chance. So what you see on the left side is in the background behind me is the Great Mosque of Kairouan, which was the capital city of what was at the time modern-day Tunisia during the Middle Ages. It's a cultural and religious center to this day. But the history of Tunisia spans through thousands of years, because what you see on the right side is Oudna, a Roman city that is not too far away from Tunis. And actually from the base of that column, that was the third day of cycling. I was already almost guessing the silhouette of Tunis. I was almost feeling back home. So the journey continued through beautiful places. Here you see on the right side also the fountain of Zagouan, which is a city famous for its water springs and aqueducts that would carry water all the way to Carthage. So my journey through Tunisia was literally a journey through history in reverse order, starting from the Arab Spring, the Revolution, modern times, through the Middle Ages, through ancient time, Roman, Carthaginian times, until the shores of the Mediterranean, which are very familiar to me. And that is where I boarded a ferry in July 2020 directed back home to Italy, which is my home country. And I wanted to share this beautiful picture of the sun rising over the Mediterranean, because this picture for me captured all the happiness of going home in a way, after months of uncertainty, after the first lockdown and all that happened in between. But I couldn't help but thinking about those who, for whom, unfortunately, these waters do not represent a route home or to safety. But I was thinking about those who escape actually war, poverty, and persecution, and instead of finding safety, find their deaths in these waters. So I just wanted to share that thought about what the Mediterranean unfortunately is in its beauty, but it also in its tragic stories. On the right side, you see a picture from the port of Genova. Behind me is the Lanterna, which is the tallest lighthouse in the whole Mediterranean. And from Genova, I started cycling following the Italian coastline of Liguria, later Tuscany. I guess the picture on the right doesn't need any introductions. The famous Torre di Pisa, the Pisa Tower, is there for everybody to recognize. Until then, my journey through Italy was very pleasant and flat. As a cyclist, you do start paying a lot of attention to the geography of the places you cycle through. But then, when I started going mainland, because my hometown is on the other side of the country, I started going up and crossing the mountain range of the Apennini, which was tiring, which was hot in the middle of August. But I had a big reward on the other side when I finally reached home. This was kindly sponsored by my mom, who is probably watching this, and I would like to thank her for all the support, as well as my family, the steadfast support I had throughout my journey. So after a very nice period of resting at home, I continued my journey with my sister to the city of Milan, where I spent some time before crossing the eastern part of Italy in the direction of Venice and the Slovenian border. In Milan, I wanted to just pause a little bit in Milan, because for as much as my long distance cycling journey could be an individualistic experience, for me, the bicycle became also a way to connect with other people. Often stories of collective action, people who use the bicycle not for fun as I did, but for work or for other reasons. And in Milan, I shared the streets of Milan with the food delivery riders who had become very essential, very important during the pandemic. But however, they were still struggling with poor working conditions, and they came together over that period of time. They established trade unions in Milan and in other cities to demand more decent and better working conditions. And I wanted to also share that story with you, because they are cyclists and they cycle through any kind of weather, any kind of hardships, and sometimes for very little in return. So back to my cycling experience again. This is the Slovenian border. I did cycle through Slovenia for a bit of time, not too much, unfortunately, because I was very eager to meet my partner who was waiting for me in Croatia. But Slovenia is also a beautiful country for cyclists. It's one of the greenest countries in Europe. So I hope I will come back one day and explore it more. I reached the Croatian border, where, as I said, my partner picked me up, and we did spend some time in Croatia in September. This was the wine harvest season, so a beautiful time to be there. If any of you are listening from Croatia, probably would agree. So after the wine harvest, again refreshed and well hydrated, I hit the road again. This time following one of the Eurovelo routes that go towards the eastern part of Croatia, following the Drava River. And I wanted to say that this was really a fantastic experience as a cyclist. The interior part of Croatia is unfortunately not as well known as the coast for many tourists. But as a cyclist, I really enjoyed it. The countryside roads or cyclable paths were good through like shiny golden cornfields, as you can see in this picture. The land is flat. Again, this is very important for cyclists. And like that, little by little, I reached Osijek, one of the biggest cities in eastern Croatia. And after spending some time there, we basically, my partner and I, moved on to Bosnia. At that time, the idea of a worldwide journey started to fall apart because we still didn't know how strong the second wave of the pandemic would be. So we decided to spend about a month in Bosnia, wait it out, see how the situation would be by the end of the month. And while in Bosnia, we decided to volunteer for an organization called No Name Kitchen that provides support to asylum seekers stranded at the EU border between Bosnia-Herzegovina and Croatia. The picture I've put up is actually not one of my pictures. It is from somebody who had his shoes basically stolen and burned in an attempt to cross the border. These are people who often end up sleeping in abandoned buildings or out there in the woods in the cold winters of Bosnia. And this organization, No Name Kitchen, provides them with some basic support. It's run through the good heart of a lot of volunteers and support in kind or financial from other donors. Provides basic food, clothes, and shoes to most of them. So this is unfortunately, as I wanted to share this experience as well, because we often forget. Probably the pandemic was a reminder for those of us who are very privileged to have a passport that gets them everywhere in the world. I think the pandemic was a time when we realized that maybe our freedom of movement, even for leisure, even for tourism, could be curtailed. But there are people out there in the world who are fleeing from countries at war. Most of those people I met in Bosnia actually came from Afghanistan, all the way from Afghanistan, who unfortunately do not have that right of movement, even if that means life or death. But the situation at that time started getting worse from the pandemic perspective. Around the end of October, many European countries started to announce new measures, new lockdowns, new border closures. So that's when we decided to basically suspend the trip, and my partner had already traveled back to Germany. I got a lift, and then we got reunited again there and spent basically what was the second wave of the second lockdown in winter 2020-2021 between Hamburg, Saarland, and Berlin. Thanks to the hospitality of family and friends, we could weather the storm in Germany, which meant I couldn't continue my long distance cycling trip, but I did take any opportunity I had to do some smaller trips around these beautiful places, discovering some of the bike lanes that were already there or were created during the pandemic, which was, for all its negative aspects, a positive thing in a way for cyclists, because it raised awareness about this means of transport. This is a picture from, I guess it doesn't need an introduction either. This is the Berlin Wall, which I had the pleasure of exploring by bicycle on a spring day earlier last year. I need to adapt to the new calendar. While in Berlin, once again, through the bicycle, I found out about the story of people coming together in a way to make their society, their community a bit better. And they were using the bicycle for an entirely different purpose. Unlike the riders in Milan working with it, the volunteers of this campaign I met in the streets of Berlin were using the bicycle to gather signatures for a referendum on the issue of speculation in the housing market, rising rents that unfortunately in a city like Berlin and in other cities in Germany and across Europe are pushing people out of their housing, especially in a moment of hardship like the one we live right now, where it is already hard for people to make ends meet. So they did come together. The bicycle was just one way they campaigned to get signatures. And this story has a happy ending, because by the end they managed to gather enough signatures to hold a referendum. And the referendum took place in September, and they won with an overwhelming majority. So this is also another story from the road of a form of coming together, which I found particularly interesting, and I had the opportunity to know more. This brings me to spring 2021, when the situation got a bit better from the pandemic point of view, but also climate-wise in spring. I decided to pack up my things and hit the road again. So I know that everybody finds happiness in different ways, and that's the beauty of humankind. For me, this picture, I think, is probably what comes closest to the definition of happiness. These are all the things all the objects I had in my life for those 13 months. And the beauty that comes with the minimalistic lifestyle is incredible. At the beginning, it felt a little bit terrifying to get rid of stuff, but every layer I shedded like an onion, instead of crying, I felt happier, because there is less time you need to spend organizing your things, planning, cleaning, tidying up, and there is more time suddenly for things in life that matter much more than objects. Having a good talk with someone, sleeping, reading, and everything, and cycling around Europe as I did. There were, however, sacrifices I wasn't ready to make. My coffee machine, I couldn't part with it, because without it, I don't think I would have made it all the way up to the Arctic Circle. So from Berlin, I cycled to the north, and I reached after 3 days of cycling the Polish-German border. So this picture also means a lot to me, because when you are on a long-distance cycling trip, borders always mean something, especially at these times. They are milestones. You can look back and say, well, I've made it this far. But I guess this border means even more, because the history of Europe and the lives of so many generations before us have been ravaged by the wars that were waged to move this line on the sand a little bit to the east or a little bit to the west. And I think the whole idea of cycling across it, crossing it like that with my few things and a small bicycle, is a very powerful symbol of what Europe can mean to the world today. A place where borders, at least somewhere, don't matter that much, and like old foes can live together in tolerance and peace. From the German-Polish border on the Baltic Sea, I followed another Eurovelo route, one that I also strongly recommend if you're planning a long-distance trip anytime soon, because it is very well marked, easy to follow. The landscapes are beautiful. You're basically almost always by the seaside. At that time of the year, the Baltic Sea showed two different faces to me. During the first few days, I had nice sun and warmth. The other 2 days were a bit more covered up and rainy. But nonetheless, I continued my journey along the coast, sometimes at snail's pace, until I reached the city of Dansk, which is, as you can see up there, up to the sign Dansk. This is actually a bike lane, the Eurovelo number 10. And the sign, the orange little sign there, was my guide for that week. It took me to cycle from Świnoujście in western Poland to Dansk, where I was. at that time. I would have very much liked to continue following the Eurovelo 10 to Kaliningrad and from there to the Baltic states. But unfortunately, at that time, the Russian border was still beyond reach for me. So I decided instead to board another ferry from the port of Gdansk and cross the Baltic Sea, continuing my journey on the other side, on the Swedish side of it, which turned out to be also a fantastic experience during my year cycling around the world. Sweden has one of the most, so in Sweden there is a constitutional right for everyone to roam free and wild camp, provided of course you're not pitching your tent next to somebody's house or where there is a sign saying it's forbidden. So it took me 4 weeks from the port of Nynäshamn near Stockholm to reach the Arctic Circle, but I did that in a beautiful way, camping in fantastic areas in the middle of forests by beautiful water courses. I did have some interesting encounters as well on the road. You can see that was my first reindeer. I almost fell off my bicycle to get that picture. So I would like to take a minute of appreciation for that. Now, it was really fantastic. I really enjoyed cycling north through the wilderness of Sweden. And eventually, I did reach what was the biggest milestone of my bicycle journey until then, the Arctic Circle. So this was sometime in June. I don't remember exactly the date, in June last year. It was a very hot day when I crossed the Arctic Circle. But I decided to carry on and go as far north as I could. And eventually, some of the rain and bad weather did catch up with me. So I did spend the next day 24 hours stuck in my tent because it rained non-stop. And at the end of it, when the rain finally stopped, it was about 6 or 7 p.m. in the evening the next day, I looked at my phone to see what would be the weather forecast for the next day. And then my eye fell on this little text there saying that the sun doesn't set. So I knew the theory of it. I had heard that beyond the Arctic Circle, of course, the sun, the Arctic summer night is endless. But I had never experienced it so vividly. So I decided to have a good dinner, use my coffee machine a couple of times, and then I hit the road around 9 in the evening. And I cycled through the night. This picture might have been taken like a few minutes after midnight. And you see, it was cloudy, but nonetheless very bright in the surreal silence of the Arctic night. I did see a few other reindeers cross the road every now and then, but I was more or less on my own through these beautiful landscapes. And I continued. I went as far north as I could in Sweden, almost, actually not almost. I set foot probably with the tip of my shoe in Norway, which at that time was not open to tourists, to non-essential travelers. So at that sign, I did turn my bicycle back, and gradually, the same way I traveled north. I cycled, got lifts, trains, and back all the way back to Europe, to Southern Europe, to my hometown in Italy. But before I probably end the story of my bike journey, I would like to say one word about something I really treasured of this journey. And besides the support of friends and family who knew me before, and some of them, unfortunately, not as many of them as I wanted because of the pandemic, but those I could see and spend quality time with, I did. But something I really treasured about this journey were the encounters with strangers that I had on the road. And I think that all too often, perhaps we have sometimes a distorted image of humankind. Maybe it is the TV shows, the Squid Games and the Hunger Games, and etc., or the narrative of a very individualistic society in which we live, cutthroat competition, and everything else. While I have to say that most of the people, actually almost all of the people I met on the road were extremely nice. I can tell about numerous acts of solidarity, people offering me coffee, people telling me, giving me directions, somebody in one of those hot days in central Italy when I was crossing the mountains, giving me precise instructions, village after village, where I could find the water. Once in Sweden, there was a guy who was running after me, holding a bag, and I thought, oh, maybe something dropped from my bicycle. And he basically had bought two croissants, two pastries, and he said, you can have them tomorrow for breakfast. You're camping wild. Go ahead with it. So there were numerous good stories about kindness and generosity and solidarity I encountered through my journey. Perhaps one example is this one. I was in Belgium in July 2021 on my way back to Italy. And I think on the 21st of July, it's a national holiday in Belgium. So my bicycle had a flat tire. And I was trying to repair it, but my spanner broke while doing it. So I decided, okay, let's spend the night somewhere, otherwise I'll get very nervous. The next day, I'll check which shops are open. And the closest shop was 10 kilometers away. So I resigned myself to the idea of walking all the way there. And halfway, there is this van that pulls over. The guy turns the window down and says, oh, I see you have a flat tire. Maybe you can come. I'm a mechanic. I have a garage. Come over. So we put the bicycle in the back of the van, and he drove me to his garage and then says, look, these are all the toolkits of the world. Have fun, repair your bike. I have something to do with that car over there. Take your time and everything. So I did find the spanner size 15 that I needed to fix my bike. In 15 minutes, I was done, ready to hit the road again. And this guy called Suhel, he was extremely kind to actually donate the spanner. Says, I've got more than one, so you can keep this one for you, which is something I still carry with me in my repair kit as a memory of that act of generosity. Perhaps the last encounter I would like to mention in my presentation, I think she doesn't need any introductions, is Greta Thunberg. I did meet in Stockholm in front of the parliament. Me and my small bicycle joined one of the Fridays for Future demonstrations there. And I think it was very symbolic because the summer of 2021 was one of the hottest, if not the hottest ever registered in the Arctic. And also when I was cycling back home, I happened to be in Germany right after the floodings, in Belgium right after the floodings. And when I crossed the Alps on a train bound to Italy, I was welcomed on the same day by floodings that came, like heavy rain and floodings around the Como area where I crossed. And at the same time, wildfires that were spreading without control in my own region. So if there is probably one last word I can share out there, I mean, the whole reason behind also this cycling and this year is that I think climate change, unfortunately, is real. And if we don't do anything about it soon, we will not have a world to enjoy as we do right now. I think I will stop there, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Mario, for this very impressive presentation of yours. Thank you very much. So now we're going to start the Q&A, and just a reminder for our audience, you can write your questions just in the chat and we will get to it just right now. So I have a very important question of my own, and one of our audience also asked it. Why did you choose a foldable bike instead of a normal touring bike, Mario?
Yeah, that's it's a good question, and I have to say I come prepared because it's a question I got a lot. I think I got this question even more than why did you cycle in the first place? Why did you do it with a small bicycle? Which is something hilarious. The number of people, especially children, who laughed when they saw me cycling with that small bicycle is huge. So the first reason is that this was my bicycle. I bought it in Belgium in 2013. I've carried it with me to a lot of places where I lived ever since. and I couldn't part with it. That was my bicycle. I think it would have defied the whole purpose to basically toss it away for a new bicycle, even if it would have been a more performing one. That's probably one reason. The second is that with a foldable bicycle, although you're slower, you have a significant advantage that is changing modes of transport. So if you're not strict about cycling every step of the way, a foldable bicycle is very easy to pack up and put on a train. Sometimes when you hop on a train with a big bicycle, sometimes you have problems with it. So this is another advantage. And then last but not least, I think for me it was never about speed. So I was happy to be slow as I was with my bicycle, which is, by the way, not as fragile as it looks like. It's a very sturdy one. Other than the flat tire I had in Belgium, there were very few issues I had with it.
Nice. This sounds like you would do it again on a foldable bike, your trip?
Absolutely.
That's good to hear. Here's another technical one. We were wondering how you managed to pack all the different clothing and material according to the different climate, because I mean the climate conditions in Tunisia seem to be quite different from those in the Arctic, aren't they?
Totally. It's also a good question. When I packed my things at the beginning, I still had in mind the idea of continuing my journey to Southeast Asia during the Northern Hemisphere's winter. So that would have fit very well with the idea of having only summer clothing. But then when I was lucky enough, to spend the cold winter in a house, or in several houses, thanks to the hospitality again of family and friends. So I didn't have to face cold nights out there. But when I did, especially in Sweden, I had nights when the temperature was close to zero. My sleeping bag was not adequate for those temperatures. I was just wearing multiple layers, like 3 pairs of. I was wearing all my wardrobe in one night.
Okay, that's the way to go for it.
So, Mary, you said your trips aren't just about the biking. It's also about meeting people, telling their stories. Like in Italy, you visited a hospital, you documented the COVID situation there. In Bosnia, you visited the camp. So what was the most important meeting or occasion for you during your trip, and meeting all those different people, and also make aware of social issues?
It's very hard to pick one of them. It is really hard, because I think what I have learned through these experiences is that there's no challenge, from the existential challenge of climate change to smaller challenges we face, that we can, for which we are either responsible or for which we can be a solution on our own. Like the whole idea of individual responsibility or individual action, I think, is an illusion. If we want to do something about these issues, we have to come together. It's collective action that makes a difference. So picking one of them, I think it would be very hard. I have to think about that.
Nice, thank you.
Okay, maybe one more rather organizational question would be from Eden. If you did have any struggles to cross the border, prior to a vaccination, she's asking if you got vaccinated. You don't have to. It's your choice how to answer that. But yeah, since we are in this whole pandemic situation and we seem to stay in it for a little while, so yeah. So how did you organize that?
Yeah, that was actually one of the biggest logistical issues I faced, because it was a never-ending uncertainty about where I could go. So I did go a little bit with. I stopped, of course. There were like a whole lockdown where I didn't cycle. There was a time in Germany where you couldn't go beyond, I think, beyond 15 kilometers from your house. So at that time I was just reading, enjoying the break. and waiting it out. And then I had there is a website or an application as well that is called Reopen EU, which provides information, and I think that's a very good tool for planning this kind of trips, about the current state of what are the requirements in the countries at that moment. So my journey then developed in a way following where I was allowed to go. There were countries where I couldn't enter, not even with a PCR test at the time or any other kind of test. There were countries where I could go with tests. So I did get based on where I could go. Things got, of course, easier. I would have wanted to get the vaccine as early as possible in 2021, but I had to wait for my turn age-wise. So when I did get the vaccine and I got my green pass on the way in the second part of my journey, crossing Europe south in summer, it made everything easier. It also took away a bit of worry about becoming a problem for other people as well, which is one of the things that happened. But I hope this will be over soon and we can start cycling again without worrying.
Speaking about being worried, since you were traveling on an unusual bike, one Colin is asking actually how you managed it for the spare parts availability. Did you deal with that, or did you bring a few essentials?
Yeah, that's a good question. That's a very good question, because I was it was one of the big risk factors when I planned my trip, because the problem with this bicycle I have is that you do not always find all the spare parts. So there are some shops that are specialized, and when I was in cities like in Milan, for example, or in Stockholm, there were shops that had a whole range of tools for all kinds of bicycles. Then I had it checked, and I bought some additional spare parts that would be useful on my way. I had also a spare tire with me, which I carried throughout, an old one just in case I would have problems. And when I also, something that I've learned when I started my journey, I was not very well versed in repairing my bicycle. I could pump it up, but not much more than that. And by the end of it, I can basically disassemble it piece by piece and put it back together. Not blindfolded. That's for the next bike trip.
Okay. So one last one. Speaking about the next bike trip, tell us about the future. Is there a next bicycle trip in the pipeline?
Yeah, I wish so. I think I have to negotiate that with my partner, who is in the other room. I'll see what she thinks about it. But my dream, as I moved after this year off, I'm back to work, and I'm based in Lesotho, which is a tiny country in southern Africa. If you haven't seen it or haven't been there or haven't heard about it, check it out. And if you like mountains, it is also a beautiful place to go trekking. Cycling is a bit harder, I've tried. But if there is a dream, perhaps in a few years from now, would be to cross Africa at one point and maybe continue, reach Europe from the south once again.
That sounds like a plan. Well, Mario, thanks a lot again for your nice presentation. It was awesome to see it. For everybody who wants to know more about Mario's project, Unfold the World, make sure to check him out on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook as well, I think. The channel is Mario Unfold the World. Exactly. And now we are heading to Brussels.
Bye, Mario.
Bye, Mario.
Thank you. Bye. Very nice meeting you.
Yeah, you too.
Enjoy.
Now we are heading over to Brussels to hear about the Eurovelo network, which is established by the ECF, the European Cyclists Federation, and we welcome you, Ivan. Hey.
Good evening, everyone. Warm greetings from the cold Brussels.
Giving the greetings back.
Okay, so I will share my screen. Just a second for the presentation. Okay. I hope you can see it. Yes?
Yeah, works fine. The stage is yours.
Yeah, okay. So before I begin, just a little bit about the title. So The Road Most Traveled is the name of a song from a soundtrack from this video game called Elder Scrolls Morrowind. It's this amazing role-play game where you go to explore this magical world on your own. And to me, that's kind of reminds me of cycling, you know, going to the world and exploring it. But also, it's kind of an allusion to the verses of a song by Robert Frost, which say, "I took the road less traveled, and that has made all the difference in the world." So, you know, sometimes you gotta go to that hidden path, to that undiscovered trail, and find out some amazing new things and broaden your horizons. And as for Trailblazer, well, it's also a small play on words, meaning cycling trail. I think ECF has been this pioneer who has initiated the Eurovelo network more than 25 years ago. So in a way, building this path, this road, which many people travel today. So let me start with the presentation. So what we'll cover tonight, I will talk a little bit about the European Cyclists Federation, the benefits of cycling, and the positive impact that we help to deliver through our advocacy work. And I'll also talk about Eurovelo Cycle Route Network. I will also provide some inspiration and tips for organizing cycling trips. And also I'll describe some of the highlights of the selected Eurovelo routes. So a little bit about ECF. The most important thing to know about us is that we're an NGO that promotes cycling as a sustainable and healthy means of transport and leisure. We are a member-based federation. You may be familiar with our Belgian members, Fietsersbond or GRAC, or our German member, ADFC, for example, which is our largest member. We have an ambitious strategy for 2030. We want the number of cycling trips to increase from an estimated 160 million per day in 2019 to 240 million per day by 2030. We want to sharply reduce the number of cyclists injuries or killed in road collisions by making roads safer for cyclists. We want policymakers to prioritize cycling as an active and sustainable mode of transport, and we want much more investment in high quality, safe, and comfortable cycling infrastructure. So look at all of these positive societal impacts that more cycling can generate. Cleaner air through reduced emissions, fewer road deaths and serious injuries through safer cycling infrastructure and less motorized traffic. More livable cities and towns through a redistribution of public space that enables more cycling and walking and decreases congestion, noise, and air pollution. More vibrant local economies through higher patronage of local businesses by cyclists and the creation of local jobs, more inclusive societies. So, you know, what other investments deliver all of that? So here's a summary of some of the benefits that we have analyzed and quantified in economic terms. The health benefits are the most striking. Cycling contributes to longer and healthier lives, preventing cardiovascular diseases, diabetes, mental health problems, and prevents around 18,000 premature deaths per year in Europe. This generates an economic impact of around 73 billion euro per year. Cycle tourism contributes around 44 billion euro to Europe's economy every year and creates more than 500,000 jobs in the European Union. Cycling levels in 2018, the last time the study was updated, were contributing to CO2 emission saving of 16 tons in Europe. The savings today are even higher as cycling levels have increased. And now I will talk a little bit about the Eurovelo cycle route network. So one of ECF's flagship initiatives is Eurovelo, the European Cycle Route Network. It is a 17 long-distance cycle routes that cross and connect the whole continent. The Eurovelo initiative is the biggest cycle route network of its kind in the world. And when completed, it will total 90,000 kilometers spanning 42 countries. So this is, as I said, this is the largest cycle route network on the planet, meaning planet Earth. We still don't have concrete plans for planet Mars, but we could perhaps reach out to Elon Musk. But so far, we're on Earth. The development of Eurovelo provides safe, direct, and coherent and connected cycling infrastructure and cycle routes network that benefit all categories of cyclists. A key to the success of Eurovelo has been bringing together actors at international, national, regional, and even local levels to realize a cycle route network that truly connects communities. Cycle tourism is growing strongly in popularity and has proven to be a very safe and healthy holiday choice in pandemic times. Even without the pandemic, cycle tourism has continued to grow steadily. Cycle tourism also draws tourists away from the usual overcrowded hotspots, spreads it around, and benefits many small and medium-sized businesses. The rise in the use of e-bikes has opened up cycling to many more people of all ages and abilities, and has increased the average distance that people are willing to travel by bike. This has also contributed to the boom in cycle tourism over the past years, and we believe this will only continue. Now, I don't know if you've tried e-bikes, but they truly make you feel like you have superpowers. So, as I said, this enables people from all ranges and abilities to enjoy cycling. So it's not like you have to be super fit, super athletic like Mario, and in order to cycle. Or if you have this stereotypical image of cyclists as usually middle-aged men and women in tight cycling jerseys. So, it's with the introduction of e-bikes, this is expanding the range of people who are being able to cycle. So there are many different ways you can experience cycle tourism, and I've listed some of the most popular options. Each option has its pros and cons. If you're just getting started or want something fun to do on a weekend or a day off, you can do a day trip close to home or close to your holiday destination. In many places, you can even hop on a train with your bike to get to the route you want to cycle. If you want to cycle, if you want someone else to take care of all the logistics and arrangements, there are some fantastic cycling package tours offered by professional tour operators. You can find details of bookable offers on the Eurovelo website. Some package tours are fully guided group tours, and some even have specific themes. A few years ago, our CEO, Jill Warren, went on a gastronomic cycling tour in Piedmont region in Italy. A group of 14 people cycled during the day and stopped for luxurious picnic spreads at lunchtime. In the evening, there were fantastic four-course meals and wine, and they also made cultural stops along the way, visited a truffle hunter, and did wine tasting. So sounds amazing. Advantages is that you get to experience this with a great guide and a great group of people who also like to cycle, and you don't have to worry about organizing anything. Disadvantage is, of course, this is the most expensive way to do a cycle trip, so you should keep that in mind. There are also self-guided options. You get a map and details of where your accommodations in the evening, and you go at your own pace. The tour operator transports your luggage for you. So the advantages of this approach is you have more freedom to explore, but there is help, and there is help when you need it, like an emergency number to call if your bike breaks down or something similar. This option is cheaper than a fully guided option, and it may also be a very good option for families who want the flexibility to go at their own pace and make frequent stops. Disadvantages is you don't have an experienced guide to explain things, take care of all logistics, and point out all the cultural and local highlights. This didn't seem to be the problem for Mario, so it depends what's your pick. And of course, you can also organize your cycle tours yourself and transport your own luggage. So should you take your own bike or hire one? That depends. The tour operators usually provide bikes, and often you can choose between a conventional and an e-bike. This may be the most convenient if it's too difficult to transport your own bike to the starting point. So this is our CEO, Ms. Jill Warren. So these tips reflect her experience over the years on different kinds of cycling tours, as well as the experience of some of our colleagues here at ECF. So which type of bike to choose? Well, it's up to you. If you're taking your own luggage, invest in good bike bags. You can buy them from shops with a good selection of cycling accessories or even online. Some come with rain covers. If it's really raining hard, the bags will still get wet. Please mind that, even with rain covers on them. For extra protection, put your things that are inside in the bag in the waterproof bags too. Otherwise, you may find when you go to your destination that all your extra clothes are wet. Also, make sure your bike has a drink holder or even two mounted on the frame, and bring lots of water and drinks. Also, make sure to bring a map, a paper map, or a map that you downloaded on your cell phone, but make sure to bring a power bank so you can recharge your phone on the go. Now, I will tell you a little bit about the Eurovelo routes near and far that you might like to try. So this is Eurovelo 15, the Rhine cycle route. It follows the Rhine in Switzerland, France, Germany, and Netherlands, and is one of the most popular Eurovelo routes. It's fully certified according to European certification standard, which means that significant sections of the route are suitable for cyclists of all fitness levels and abilities. It's a very good choice both for first-time cyclotourists and for cyclotourist veterans. It's child-friendly, so you can also ride Eurovelo 15 as a family vacation. Generally speaking, the Eurovelo routes that run along rivers are relatively flat and easier to do long distances and cycle holidays on. The Eurovelo 15 is also well connected by public transport, and there are a lot of cycle-friendly amenities and services along the way. In many parts of the Euro 15, you can cycle on either side of the Rhine. For example, you can choose whether to cycle on the German side or on the French side between just after Basel and Strasbourg. So I would like also to briefly share with you a cycling trip that one of our Eurovelo colleagues, Florence, took on the Eurovelo 15 route. She started in Andermatt, a mountain village in the Swiss Alps, cycling to Latterborg near Strasbourg. She is quite an adventurous type, so her trip included several days of cycling, camping, and covering the more difficult sections of the route, sort of like a light version of Mario's trip. Please visit our website if you'd like to read the full article she wrote about her trip. You can see some of the photos that she took on her trip. So this is Eurovelo 19, the Meuse cycle route. This route is completely developed and signed with Eurovelo signs, which makes it very easy to follow and enjoy. It follows the banks of the river Meuse from its source to its mouth, covering just over 1,050 kilometers. It's mainly flat as it follows the river banks, and it is also suited for cyclists of all levels. It is within easy reach of Brussels, so if you are in the vicinity of Brussels, you can try it out on a day trip or on a weekend trip if you like. For example, you can take your bike on the train to Liège, cycle to Namur, and then take the train back to Brussels. On your cycle trip along the route, you can also visit interesting sites such as the Citadel of Dinant, the Maschhagen, a UNESCO-designated biosphere area, or the Biesbosch National Park and a protected nature reserve, just to name a few. Moving on, this is Eurovelo 6, the Atlantic Black Sea route. This is also a very popular Eurovelo route. In particular, the famous sections along the Loire and Danube rivers are known to cyclotourists around the world. I've mentioned that Jill cycled the Eurovelo 6 along the Danube from its source to Vienna. The Austrian section of Eurovelo 6 is especially good for cycling holidays. The entire route is asphalted and very easy to navigate, and there are lots of services and amenities that cater to cyclotourists. It is also a great route for beginners and for families with children. In many parts, you can cycle on either sides of the Danube, and in a number of towns, there are ferries that can take your bike on to switch from one side of the river to another. Myself, originally, I'm from Serbia, by the way, and I recommend visiting the National Park Fruška Gora mountain. Apart from the therapeutic clean mountain air, there you will find the famous thermal springs and spas, as well as renowned wineries and 18th century Orthodox monasteries. It is one of my favorite cycling sections, and it's a great place if you want to go into that nature zen state of mind. This is Eurovelo 1 Atlantic Coast route, which spans 11,000 kilometers and goes through 6 countries, including Portugal, Spain, France, Ireland, UK, and Norway. It is also culturally rich, passing through 14 UNESCO World Heritage Sites. As you could see on the map, it's not on a continuous cycle. It's not a continuous cycle route. So if you want to cycle this route, you'll have to plan your segments carefully. The route is well developed with Eurovelo signs in Portugal, Spain, and France. For example, while certain sections of the route in Ireland and Norway are either underdeveloped or at the planning stage. You can see some stunning videos that showcase parts of the route on Eurovelo website, including dramatic coastal landscapes, bustling port cities, and cozy fishing villages. This is a great route for sea and seafood lovers. So this diverse route offers a variety of cycling trips. You can enjoy the warm Iberian sun while dipping your toes in the Mediterranean Sea. You can visit the beautiful and uplifting UNESCO World Heritage Sites, such as the city of Salamanca, Cathedral, the city of Burgos, or Fort of Sagres, Belém Tower, and historic center of Porto in Portugal. If you're interested in tasting fine wines, then the French section of the route is for you. If you prefer cycling in the northern climate and marveling at auroras, then you might want to check out the Norwegian parts of the route. Now moving on to Eurovelo 8 Mediterranean route. This route has undergone a lot of development in recent years, also thanks to EU-funded projects that ECF helped coordinate. Our Med8 project just finished 2 years ago, and we continue to work with project partners on a long-term management agreement to progress the good work. The Med8 passes through 10 different countries, so you have a broad choice of where to focus. So pick your favorite Mediterranean region. This route connects popular tourist destinations like Barcelona and Venice, but also has many hidden gems, and it's more healthy and environmentally friendly way to visit the Mediterranean region than, for example, by a cruise ship. If nice, sunny and warm weather is important to you on a cycle holiday, then you must have the best luck in choosing a route like this one. It's also a great choice for beach lovers. Lovers of culture will also have plenty to see, as this route passes through 23 UNESCO World Heritage Sites. I can personally attest to the beauty and attractiveness of the Adriatic coast. In Croatia, for example, traveling from northwest, the stage follows beautiful beaches until the attractive city of Zadar. There is also, of course, this famous city of Dubrovnik, which is now reachable by a bicycle. This is another interesting and exciting route as well. The Eurovelo 13 Iron Curtain Trail. It was recognized as one of the cultural routes by the Council of Europe. This culturally significant route follows the line that once forcibly divided Europe, stretching from the Barents Sea to the Black Sea. It's one of the longest Eurovelo routes, and it has something to offer to every type of cycle tourist, from the vineyards in southern Czechia and northern Austria to the mountainous border of Bulgaria and Greece, and from the bustling ports of the Baltic states to the stark beauty of Lapland. So I hope that this presentation has given you some practical tips and some inspiration for going on a cycle tour, whether on a holiday or just in your free time. I would love to have more time to talk about the Eurovelo routes, because there is so much more to discover by bicycle. You can go to eurovelo.com for more information on all of these and other routes. And also, very importantly, if you want to support Eurovelo, you can also make a donation on Eurovelo site. Depending on the amount of your donation, you can receive a Eurovelo map, a Eurovelo guidebook, Eurovelo jersey, cap, sock, or a combination of those items. And to conclude with the words of the great J.R.R. Tolkien, not all who wander are lost. So I wish you all a lot of memorable cycle wanderings, and I thank you very much.
Thank you, Ivan, for this very informative presentation. Very nice. I'm just going to get right into it and ask the most important question. Did you cycle all of the paths yet?
Fortunately, no. I haven't taken that road yet. But I cycled a little bit Eurovelo routes in back home in the northern Serbia, and a little bit about some of the routes here in Brussels. But yeah, it would be certainly a challenge, maybe for Mario, to cycle all of the Eurovelo routes, and that would be quite a history.
Maybe in the future, but it is a quite huge cycle network you build up with the Eurovelo organization. But how do you manage to build those cycle paths actually? Because they're like cross borders, like many countries involved. How does this procedure
Yes,
work?
so we in managing the Eurovelo network, we have the assistance and help of the national coordinators. So in almost every country, we have a national Eurovelo coordination center or the coordinator, which helps us in managing and developing the route. Some of the routes were developed within the EU-funded projects, such as the Med Cycle Tour for the development of Eurovelo 8, Atlantic on Bike for the development of Eurovelo 1, Atlantic Coast Route. So we utilized those available funds. They ranged around 2.3 million euros, and a consortium of partners, including the ECF, was involved from each country as well. So that's how some of the routes were developed. And of course, as I said, with the national Eurovelo coordinators, we developed and maintained the routes.
Mm-hmm. Thanks a lot. Guillaume is then asking, how do you decide on the actual layout of the road? So the political process is as you described, but is it also you that is deciding on which way the road is actually going, or is it more a national task?
Yes, well, so ECF is mainly doing the work on a transnational level. So we do decide where the Eurovelo routes go, but also we consult our national Eurovelo coordinators. We have a procedure in place if a certain route wants to be connected to the Eurovelo route. So it's there's a procedure on our website how it's done, and so it's a deliberative process, of course.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Very exciting. And Ivan, you talked already about
yeah.
No, excuse me.
Just to repeat again, mainly we do the work on a transnational level, while our partners are in charge of affairs on a national or local level. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any plans of doing it like more international, like the cycling network?
So as I mentioned, the Eurovelo network is not yet completed. Out of 90,000 kilometers, we're halfway there. So of course we're working on further developing so that we have all of the routes fully developed, fully signposted, which really connect whole of Europe.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And do you have a goal set? I mean, a certain year or time span in which you want to fully develop it? Well,
we have in general objectives, part of our 2030 Eurovelo strategy. By that time, we kind of that's our goal. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So we go on to the next question. Martin is asking, does Eurovelo receive a lot of more support since its establishment from political actors like the EU Commission or Parliament? And what can citizens like us, like normal people, do to support you guys, your work?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So basically, for regular people, private citizens and cycling enthusiasts, there's this option of making a donation, as I mentioned, to Eurovelo. We graciously accept, and it helps in our work and for developing the route and promoting cycling, of course. That's one way people can engage and support. Also, if you have any interesting stories to share of your cycling trips, which could inspire people, you can reach out to us. And as for the political aspect, of course, we're in touch with EU Commission and Directorate Generals, as well as the Parliament, because our work is also revolving around advocacy. So we're trying to include cycling as a category in any relevant legislation. For example, the TEN-T, the Trans-European Transport Network, or any other political initiatives on the EU level. But yeah, there is a lot of support. I can share some quotes by Michael Kramer or some EU Commission officials, which really support the cycling as a means of combating climate change, contributing to the environmental protection, increasing economic benefits, etc. So yeah.
Yes, please feel free to comment it also underneath the video later on YouTube.
Sarah is asking, what is the most popular Eurovelo route?
So based on our statistics on eurovelo.com website, Eurovelo 15 is by far the most popular in terms of number of sessions that we get. So the Rhine, that will be Rhine cycle route, yes, because it's already it is the most developed Eurovelo route, and it's the most famous. So, and it's on its doorstep. It's got the largest cycling market, the Germany and France. So that would be Eurovelo route 15. Basically, it's EV15, EV6, EV19, EV8, and EV1. Those are the 5 top Eurovelo routes.
I don't look up which one, where those are going.
Okay, so the Eurovelo 15 follows the Rhine. Eurovelo 6 follows it's from Atlantic to the Black Sea. Eurovelo 19 follows the Meuse cycle route. Eurovelo 1 is the Atlantic coast route, following the Atlantic Ocean coast. Eurovelo 8 the Mediterranean route, and that's it. So it's a combination.
So everybody seems to love bike rides or loves biking, but how would you support someone who never did a longer trip on a bike? What would be the normal procedure to reach out to Eurovelo? Is there any possibility you would help someone to give him advice how to start on a bike trip around Europe?
So the best source of information would be our website. I would first recommend going to our website, getting to know about the routes, the details, the lengths, the difficulty. Maybe you can get book some cycling tours there. So basically, our website would be the main source of information. Apart from that, we also have Eurovelo discussion groups on Facebook. You can join those groups. You can follow us on social media and get more information there. You can post questions, get tips. So that will be a combination of those.
Nice. It's an open community. Thank you, Ivan.
Okay, Ivan. Thanks a lot for your time, for your presentation. That was very good, very informative. We are going to give the word back to Michel, and we say goodbye. See you next time. Thanks again to Mario and Ivan. And in case you want to support either of them, make sure to donate, make sure to follow them on the social media, and see you next time.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Lucas.
Thank you very much.
Sorry.
All the best. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.
But yeah, thank you, Lucas and Helen, and thank you again if you're still, I think you're still background listening, Ivan and Mario, for your presentations. We wish, I mean, it's nice to meet you online, but we of course wish that we could do this event someday in presential, so that we could discuss afterwards and get to know each other better. But maybe in the future we'll meet again, and let's keep in touch. And thanks everyone else, of course, for following this veloTALK. We hope you get some information on how to organize a bike trip by Ivan's presentation, and some input, and we of course hope you're inspired and motivated to plan your next trip this summer or in the following years. If you have feedback on this event, because we of course want to continue to organize the veloTALKs this year in the next months. So if you have feedbacks, ideas, critics to this event, please send us a message on Facebook on our page. You can just directly send us a message, or leave a comment on our website, which is veloplaisir.eu. Also, if someone of you who are listening tonight, or someone you know maybe wants to share his or her trip, feel free also to contact us, because we are of course looking for interesting speakers for the next veloTALKs. Yeah, that's all from our side. We hope you enjoyed it, and see you hopefully at the next veloTALK. You'll get the information if you follow us on Facebook. You of course get the information for the date of the next veloTALK. Thanks a lot for watching, and have a good night.
Thank you, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.